Everyone prepared you for the waiting. The sermons, the prayers, the videos, the late nights journaling your standards, and your healing, all of it pointed toward one thing: how to wait well, how to be whole before He arrives, how to trust God's timing without losing your mind. And you learned. You really did. You did the work. Nobody prepared you for what comes after. Because here is what no one tells you. The first year of godly love isn't the reward for your faithfulness. It's the activation of everything God built in you during the wait. Every wound that healed, every standard you set, every piece of identity you anchored in Him, it is all about to be tested. Not because you chose wrong, because you chose real. And real love doesn't start easy and get hard. It starts honest and gets deep. If you're still waiting, stay with me, because this is preparation, not a warning. And if the wait just ended and something feels off, if you expected exhale and found confusion, instead, this is the message you needed someone to give you before the first year began. There's a truth every climber knows and almost never says. The summit isn't the finish line. It's the halfway point. More accidents happen on the descent than on the climb up, because climbers celebrate at the top. They relax. They assume the hardest part is behind them. But the descent requires completely different muscles. Not endurance, but flexibility. Not pushing through alone, but careful navigation together. The wait was the climb. The first year is the descent. You reached the summit, the prayer was answered, the man arrived, the door opened. But now, you climb down together, and the skills that carried you up are not the same skills you need for what's next. Nobody warns you about this, because everyone is too busy celebrating the summit. Here is what's waiting on the other side of it. The first thing no one tells you is that the wounds you thought were healed will resurface. You did the work. Therapy, prayer, time, intentional growth. You entered this relationship thinking you were whole, and you were. But there are layers of healing that solitude simply cannot reach. The deepest layer of an abandonment wound doesn't surface when you're alone. It surfaces when someone actually stays, because staying triggers the part of you that still doesn't believe anyone will. The deepest layer of a rejection wound doesn't surface in solitude. It surfaces when someone actually chooses you, because being chosen activates the part of you that still whispers quietly and persistently, "I'm not worthy of this." Solitude heals the surface. Intimacy heals the core, and the first year is when the core gets exposed. Peter walked on water in Matthew 14. Faith was working. The miracle was happening. And then a wave hit. Not a new wave, the same storm that had been raging the whole time, but now he was out of the boat, exposed, vulnerable. The storm he'd been watching from inside the boat was suddenly the storm he was standing in. That's the first year. You were in the boat, during the wait, safe, contained, healing on your terms. Now you're on the water, and old waves you thought couldn't reach you are at your ankles. Peter didn't sink because he left the wrong boat. He sank because he took his eyes off Jesus and looked at the waves. And Jesus didn't say, "You shouldn't have gotten out." He reached out his hand and caught him. When old wounds surface in your first year, and they will, it doesn't mean you chose wrong. It means you're on the water. Keep your eyes on Jesus, not on the waves. The second thing no one tells you is that you will want to run, and that won't mean it's wrong. There will be a moment, maybe several, where every part of you says, leave. Not because he did something terrible, not because there's a red flag waving in plain sight, but because vulnerability at this depth activates your survival system. The same God-given instinct that protected you from the wrong men will now fire against the right one, because your nervous system doesn't know the difference between dangerous intimacy and safe intimacy. It just knows someone is getting close. And the last time someone got this close, you almost didn't survive. So it pulls the fire alarm, even when there is no fire. You'll pick a fight about something small. You'll go quiet and not be able to explain why. You'll start cataloging flaws you never noticed before, building a case for a departure you're not even consciously constructing. Your friends might call it self-sabotage. It isn't. It's protection doing its job in the wrong season. The Israelites waited 40 years for the promised land. 40 years of dreaming about milk and honey. And when they finally crossed the Jordan, when the wait was over and the land was beneath their feet, they didn't find paradise. They found Jericho, walled cities, giants, battles. Joshua 1-9 was spoken not during the wilderness, but at the entrance of the promised land, because God knew the fight after the wait requires more courage than the wait itself. The first year is your promised land. You crossed the Jordan, but the walls are still standing. Wanting to run from the promised land doesn't mean you're in the wrong land. It means you're facing your first Jericho, and the walls will come down, but you have to stay to see it. The third thing is the one that might hurt most. He won't match the man the weight created in your head. You didn't just wait for a man. You waited for a concept. Years of praying and hoping built a version of him in your mind that no human being can match. The imagined man always knew the right thing to say. He never had a bad day. He never went quiet when you needed him to speak. He was a composite of every testimony, every sermon illustration, every God will send you a man who promise you held on to through the lonely nights. The real man has morning breath, gets stressed about things that feel small to you, communicates differently than you expected, has a wound from his past that surfaces at the worst possible time. And the gap between who you imagined and who is standing in front of you requires grief, real grief. You have to mourn the fantasy man to fully love the real one, not because the real one is less, but because the real one is different, and different feels like disappointment before it reveals itself as better. Better not because he is perfect, because he is alive. And alive means he can hold you at 3 a.m. with arms that shake a little because he's scared too. He can apologize and mean it. He can be shaped by God in real time right beside you. The imagined man never grew because he was never real. The real man is, and real is messy. And messy, when it's safe and chosen and covered by God, is beautiful. Nobody warns you that part of the first year is grieving a man who never existed, so you can finally love the man who does.